بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالعلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. The last topic we finished in the first lecture was civil marriage in American courts, and now the next is validity of divorce decreed by American courts. Now, basically we need to know that the one who has the right to initiate divorce in Islam is the husband and nobody else. This is the basic rule. Because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إنما الطلاق لمن أخذ بالساق. إنما الطلاق لمن أخذ بالساق. The divorce is the right for the one who initiated the marriage contract, which is the husband. Now, in some particular cases in which there is, for example, physical abuse, financial abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, if there is a long absence, unjustified long absence for the husband, if he could not financially support his wife, if there is any other legitimate reason behind initiating the divorce by the Muslim authority represented by the Muslim judge, then the Muslim judge actually can divorce his wife or can divorce the wife from her husband without taking his permission. But this has to be limited to the case in which there is a need for the Muslim judge to intervene and to put an end, for any dilemma that might take place in the household. Someone just refrain from having a marital relation with his wife for no reason. I mean, he is there, he is present, he is, physically able, yet he doesn't like, to contact his wife. This is not his right. She has the right to apply for divorce, and the Muslim judge could issue a divorce on behalf of the husband without taking his permission. What if someone is so abusive and he wanna just keep abusing his wife by putting her on hold? He doesn't like to treat her kindly like other people do. He doesn't like to divorce her, just keep abusing her. He like abusing his wife. He cannot do that in Islam. There is no ultimate authority in Islam. She has the right to apply for divorce through the Islamic judicial system, and the Muslim judge would issue a divorce on behalf of the husband by using the authority and the power that he has as a Muslim judge. The problem here in the US is that lacking the Islamic judiciary system. We do not have Qudah, we do not have judges. We do have some mashayikh, some ulama, some Islamic organizations, some fiqh councils here and there, but we do not have the judicial power or authority. We are not supported by the judicial system here in the US. So we do have qualified people actually to judge between people, but they lack something very important, which is the authority or the power. They cannot act as judges without being authorized by the American judicial system. And when a Muslim sister is abused by her husband and he doesn't like to divorce her, this is actually where the problem starts. You want to just keep abusing her. There is no one who has the authority to divorce her, and he doesn't like to divorce her. What is the solution? As I said, there is no one in Islam has unlimited authority. Everyone has his own limits. Even the Muslim Khalifa, in case of having a Khilafah and the Muslim Khalifa for the whole Muslim community and all over the world, still he is not the highest authority. He can actually be terminated by Majlis al-Shura al-Islami if he did something wrong, and he deserved to be just fired from his position as a Khalifa. Back to the point. The highest authority that we have here in the US, in which people actually resort to go and ask for consultation, are our imams and mashayikh and scholars. So if we do not have anybody else to take the responsibility of investigating any marital dispute and to divorce the wife from her husband, then we have no choice but to go to the mashayikh and scholars, to give them this power and this authority. Here in the US, any minority does have the right to be judged according to their, to their religion, as long as this does not contradict the applicable law here in the US. So for the imams and mashayikh, if they are interested in registering themselves or their Islamic centers as an Islamic arbitration committee in the local court, I mean, there is a process we need to go through. And honestly, this is one of the shortages or shortcomings that we have as mashayikh and imams. We are not registered in the local courts of our cities to be acting as Islamic arbitration committee. Because when I'm registered in the local court as an Islamic arbitrator, I do have authority. I derive my authority from the legal system itself. And actually, this is what we need to do as imams and people of knowledge. What if the imam is not registered as, or the Islamic center is not registered as an Islamic arbitration committee in the local court? Is there any solution? Yes. When a couple of people, a husband and wife, came to the imam, they can actually authorize him. They can give him the power to judge between them by just signing a legal document showing that his judgment will be binding for the two disputing parties. This is one of the ways in Islam, by the way, in which people can judge and can arbitrate. I mean, any disputing parties, if they authorize a third party to judge between them, and this person is qualified, he understands the rules, and he can judge between them, then this is a power and authority by itself. He can judge between them, and his judgment or her judgment is binding for those two disputing parties. So the first way, I mean, after she tries her best with her husband to divorce her, if he doesn't like to divorce her, then she can go to the imam. If the husband actually, agree to sign a document giving the imam the power and authority, then he can take his responsibility and investigate, find out what's going on, who's right, who's wrong, how to resolve this problem. He has to do his best reconciliating and trying to bring peace back to the family. If all these ways of bringing peace to the family failed, then the divorce is the solution. He should not depend on his knowledge by himself. When it comes to divorcing a wife from her husband, it is highly recommended for him to bring other two different qualified imams and to share the problem with him and to find out what's going on. So if they unanimously decide to divorce her from her husband, then they can divorce. Just to keep ourselves on the safe side. Even when we go to any just regular court, usually we have a minimum of 2 judges, just to make sure. None of those people is extremely conservative or liberal. So to make sure that the decision is rational and applicable enough. The same actually rule should be applied when it comes to Islamic Arbitration Committee. The imam should bring some other people, a minimum of 1 or 2, to share the problem with them and to consult this issue with them. If they unanimously decide to divorce the wife from her husband, then they can divorce her. What if the husband went to the extreme, and he did not even like to be judged by the imam? He doesn't like to divorce his wife. He doesn't want to listen to the imam. He doesn't want to come to the masjid. Doesn't want to sign a legal document. To be judged by the imam. At that point, then the imam has to bring another 1 or 2 other people of knowledge and to share the marital issue with them, that or the dispute, the argument that he has on table. If they unanimously decide that this wife deserves to be divorced from her husband, then they can divorce her without being authorized by the husband himself. This has to be done after she gets her divorce through the legal system. If her marriage was already registered here in the US, one of the courts, then she has to apply for a divorce. Once this divorce is issued, or the divorce decree is issued by the judge, she can take this divorce decree to the imam and tell him that, okay, legally speaking, I'm not divorced. I want to get the Islamic divorce. Then the imam should take it from there and start doing the process that I already explained. If he found out that she deserved divorce, then he can, along with other 2 imams, he can take his responsibility and just divorce the wife from her Why one more time, why we ask for another two imams, to be with the original imam? We don't want to open the floor for everybody to judge between people and to divorce whomever he wants and to do whatever he wants, because again we are not authorized by the legal system. We come up with our own authority, so we have to be careful. When it comes to arbitrating between people, there are some etiquettes and rules have to be taken into consideration. The imam or the Islamic arbitration committee should take their time. They have to give a one chance, two chances, three chances for the absent people to come and to represent themselves and to argue with the other party. They have to investigate, they have to scrutinize, they have to check out exactly what's going on, who's right and who's wrong. They have to take their time, and then after that they should take their decision whether or not the wife should be divorced from her husband. Okay, what if the issue went the other way around? If the couple were already, if the marriage of the couple were already registered in the court, but they did not apply for a divorce through the legal system. They went directly to the imam, okay, and the divorce Islamically issued. Now they are Islamically divorced. Is there anything wrong with going to the court and apply for another divorce through the civil court? There is nothing wrong with that. Only for documentation purposes, because there is another point will be discussed right now, inshallah, which is the validity of the divorce actually issued by the legal system. Is it sufficient enough, to separate a Muslim man from a Muslim woman, or it's not enough? This inshallah will be discussed now. I don't know if I mentioned this point or not. If the wife is the one who applied for divorce, not the husband, the wife, and she gets her divorce according to the American law, is she Islamically divorced or not? This is a critical question. And the answer is that no, she is not divorced. Even if she gets her divorce through the legal system, she is not divorced. Because actually issuing a divorce is an authority and power. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said, وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. Allah does not give an authority for the disbelievers over the believers. So even the non-Muslim judge has a legal authority, but when it comes to divorcing a Muslim wife from her Muslim husband, he does not have that right. He can issue the legal divorce, but Islamically speaking, they are still couple and they are not divorced. That's why I said that after they get their divorce from the court, then they have to come back to the masjid to issue the Islamic divorce. Adopting Muslim children, refugees in the West. In some particular cases, we receive some orphans, some kids from overseas. They came after, they have been brought here by some, non-profit organization, some Christian organization, by the federal government, different ways actually to bring orphans and kids here to the U.S., especially after, civil wars here and there. So what is the status of adopting those Muslim kids? Is it Islamically allowed or not? The importance of this question is the following. When those people actually come to the U.S., they have to be taken care of by someone. And the legal system here actually allow people to adopt those kids legally. It means that when you adopt a child, he has to be attributed to you. So you'll become his legal guardian. And this is a sort of adoption that used to be applied before Islam, and even in the very early age in Islam, adoption was allowed. Like Zayd radiallahu anh was called Zayd ibn Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated this law by saying, "Ud'uuhum li'abaihim huwa aqsatu 'inda Allah." So adoption in Islam was completely prohibited. So we need to differentiate between two different concepts now. There is something called sponsorship or guardianship versus adoption. Adoption actually is to take care of a child while he is attributed to you. So you will be his legal guardian. You act as his father. He is adopted by you. And based on that, here in the US, you might deserve some financial aid from the government if you adopt a child. This kind of adoption is is extremely prohibited in Islam. We do support, as Muslims, we do support, guardianship or sponsorship as a virtual act, as a ta'ah and ibadah and qurba to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something perfect. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ana wa kafirul yatimi fil jannati kahatayn." I or myself and the sponsor of an orphan will be gathered together in Jannah like those two fingers. So sponsoring orphans and taking care of them and raising them Islamically is a very virtual act of worship in Islam. However, adoption is prohibited. Now the problem here is that you cannot take a child without legally adopting him. So you have to adopt him. Not only act as a guardian, you have to adopt him. Literally, you have to adopt him. He has to be your child. He has to hold your name as if you are his father, and that's haram. Well, when it comes to balancing between the advantage of taking care of those kids and the disadvantage of adoption in Islam, after long discussion in Amja, we came up with this fatwa that if there is no way for you as a Muslim to take care of a child, if there is no way but to adopt him, then you can adopt him. You can go through the legal system and apply for adoption and get some financial support or aid from the government as a return for this adoption. However, you have to take some measures, to declare for the Muslim community that so and so child is not my son. And actually, this kind of adoption is just a nominal one. That's just a legal process that we went through in order for me to be able actually to take care of this child and to get the financial support from the government out of adopting him. However, he is not my biological son. That's something has to be documented in the Islamic Center and announced and declared for the Muslim community that this is just a nominal adoption and it's not a real one. There are some other issues related to the same topic. If someone in a nominal way adopted a child, what will happen for this child? How about the status of this child? Will he become as his real son? What if this child actually was a male and he just grew up until he reached the age of puberty? He became 13, 14 years old. Okay, and the adopter, or the man, the one who adopted him, has daughters. Can those girls take this person or this boy as their brother or not? The answer is that no, they cannot actually act with each other like they are siblings because they are not. So in the very early age of the adopted child, there must be a solution. If this child actually is less than 2 years old, and the wife of the adopter can breastfeed him or suckle him, then she has to do so, because according to the the Islamic law, if the child is suckled for 5 different times by a lady, then she will become permanently prohibited for him. We call it al-mahramiyya, which is the permanent prohibition of marriage between people. Based on what? Based on nursing or breastfeeding. The Prophet ﷺ said, يحرم من الرضاع ما يحرم من النسب. يحرم من الرضاع ما يحرم من النسب means that breastfeeding prohibits what the biological lineage prohibits. So if the child who is less than 2 years old gets suckled or breastfed by a lady for 5 different times, she would become permanently prohibited for him. She would take the exact status of his mother. Consequently, all the girls and the boys of this lady will be taking the same status of his real brothers and sisters. In this particular case, even if he grew up in the same household and he became, he reached the age of puberty, then there is nothing wrong with that. He can intermingle and interact with the girls because they take the same status of his sisters. What if breastfeeding this child is not possible by the wife of the adopter? Is there another solution? For some reason she could not breastfeed him. For some reason there is no milk. She could not. He could be suckled or breastfed by the wife of the adopter's sister. So if her sister actually breastfed him for 5 times, then the wife of the adopter become his خالته بالرضاع, his aunt by suckling. So this particular lady actually will become permanently prohibited, for him, because she is his khala, his aunt by breastfeeding. However, her offspring will not be prohibited for this child, because they will be like cousins, right? So this is just a point related to the same topic. Marrying someone who is pregnant from fornication. We Muslims know that fornication or committing adultery is one of the major sins in Islam, according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. لا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. When someone fornicates, he does not fornicate while having any iman, meaning that he is lacking any kind of iman while committing such a sin. In Surah An-Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentioned الزاني لا ينكح إلا زانية أو مشركة. The fornicator man should not get married but with a fornicator woman or just a polytheist woman, just to show the severity of this sin. Also in Surah Al-Ma'idah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed Muslim men to get married with non-Muslim women, He stipulated the chastity for those ladies or girls. He said وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا. Al-Muhsanat meaning the chaste non-Muslim or the chaste people of the book. So chastity and staying away from illegitimate conjugal or sexual relation is one of the conditions for the validity of marriage between a Muslim man and non-Muslim woman. Now, one of the questions that we frequently receive in Amja is the status of getting married with a woman who is pregnant from fornication. Okay, a lady or a girl already pregnant, and someone actually is proposing her for marriage. Now we need to ask, is she pregnant from him or from somebody else? If she is pregnant from somebody else, then they cannot get married, even if she declared her repentance or tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has to wait until she deliver her illegitimate pregnancy, and then after that, okay, he can get married with her. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, fala yasqi ma'uhu zar'a ghayrihi." Fala yasqi ma'uhu zar'a ghayrihi, meaning that whoever believes in Allah, and the meaning of the hadith, not the literal translation, means that whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not get married with a pregnant woman until she deliver her pregnancy. Now this is if she is pregnant from somebody else. But the question here, what if a man and woman in a moment of weakness, okay, they committed a stupid sin and they did what they did, and she became pregnant, okay, and this person actually wanted to get married with her. He is the criminal, he is the fornicator, not anybody else, and she admits that her pregnancy is from this particular guy, and then they want to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just to cover whatever they did. Is it allowed for him and her to get married while she is still pregnant? The answer that we adopted here in Amja is that yes. To support people repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just covering the sin that they did, there is nothing wrong with that. If they both admit that this pregnancy is from him, not from somebody else, providing that she is not married with somebody else, because providing that she is not at that time when he's proposing her for marriage, or when he did what he did, she was not married with somebody else. So we have to make this point clear. She has to be a single or bachelor woman who does not have a legal or legitimate husband. She was free, she was single. She get fornication with a particular guy or person, and they want both to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just cover whatever they did in the past and just get married. Are they allowed to get married or not? The answer is that yes, because the hadith that I mentioned actually means that a person is not allowed to get married with a lady or a girl as long as she is pregnant from somebody else. He was not talking about the case that the fornicator is the one who is proposing her for marriage, and the hadith is very clear. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فلا يسقي ماؤه زرع غيره, the pregnancy from somebody else. Okay, In the declaration of Amjad, actually, they mentioned the following. I'm going to just read it as is. This is in consideration of the spirit of the Islamic law concerning shielding and protecting people, and as an encouragement for both fornicators to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in repentance. Okay, now let's take it to the next step. Can the fornicator claim the child as his son, as his legitimate son or not? This point actually took us, I think 2 years until we came to a conclusion. Many researchers have been submitted to the annual convention. We had a long debate, and the conclusion is that if the fornicator claims the child, okay, as his legitimate son, and he did not mention clearly that this pregnancy is an illegitimate one. He did not declare that this pregnancy is illegitimate one. He just said that this child is mine. I'm his biological father, and I want to attribute him to myself. If he asked for that, and she was she was single at that time when they did what they did, then he can attribute the child for himself. Again, that's a very disputable point, but this is actually what we ended up with after 2 years, after two continuous annual conventions for Amjad, and many actually papers have been submitted and discussed in the annual convention. This is the conclusion that we came up with. And again, because of the sensitivity of this point, I'm going to read it as is. Regarding the status of the child of fornication, Amjad takes it's not tentative anymore, it's a permanent position of allowing the child to be attributed to the fornicator or the biological father if he claims, number one, if he claims him or her, and if his partner in fornication has no husband. Now, the reason behind this position is to protect the child from the danger of growing up in a non-Muslim society without definitive ancestral lineage. Again, you might disagree with that, but this is what we came up with. Wallahu alam. The contribution of the wife who participates by her skills and labor in building the wealth of her husband. Why this point is raised? Because of many reasons. Sometimes we in some of the marital disputes, actually, with or without divorce, the wife might ask for more money other than the sponsorship and the nafaqah, claiming that she participates in the business or she contributes toward the success of the business of her husband. She works sometimes on a daily basis. She does not get paid. She is not an employee. She is not a partner. She works for free. And she deeply believes that she deserves more than what she takes from her husband because she acts as an employee. She acts as a partner. The second reason behind the importance of this point, to be clarified, is that according to the American system here, when a couple get divorced, she is entitled to 50% of his property. Whether or not she worked, she is entitled to exactly 50% of his property. If he has a clinic, if he has a business, if he has a car, property, estate, you name it, 50% is her right according to the American law. And the question here, how much exactly she deserves from his wealth, in case of divorce or in case if there is no divorce. Here is the answer. Basically, we need to know that a marital relation or the relation between a man and woman is not an enterprise. It's not a business. It's not a partnership. It's actually more sanctified and more religious than being just a partnership. It's a love. It's a respect. It's a mithaqan ghalidha, a strong and deep and religious and sanctified relation between a man and woman. وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. Second of all, we need to know that women in Islam have their own independent financial accountability. They have ذِمَّةٌ مَالِيَّةٌ مُسْتَقِلَّةٌ. You cannot tell your wife, no, you cannot buy or sell, you cannot trade because you are a female. We do not discriminate in Islam based on gender in this particular point. She is absolutely qualified, to buy and to sell and to own and to take her own financial decisions by herself without being supervised, by anybody else. Also, sponsoring the family is the sole responsibility of the husband. Okay, women in Islam are not obligated at any circumstances to sponsor themselves. If she is still a girl, she has to be sponsored by her father. If she gets married, she has to be sponsored by her husband. Regardless, I mean, if he cannot sponsor her, she can ask for divorce. If she gets divorced, then she has to go back to her parents or her, siblings if they are, can financially support her. At any circumstance, in any situation, a Muslim woman is not obligated. I'm not saying she cannot work. She is not obligated to work. She should not worry about just sponsoring. She has to be, sponsored by somebody else. And this actually shows, the high status of women in Islam. It's a very, prestigious position. You just stay home and somebody else will take care of you if you decide not to work. Okay, if she decides to work, then this has to be done based on a mutual agreement with her husband. If her husband from the beginning put a condition that if you want to work, that's fine, but in return you have to partially sponsor the house. For example, you make $5,000 per month, $1,000 has to be deducted on monthly basis, to pay the bills of the house. If they came up to an agreement, then this agreement is binding for them. Is binding for them. She can work as long as he is okay with that, as long as she is working within the limits of Islamic permissibility. There is nothing wrong, haram or fitna or gender intermingling or any mafsada or anything wrong with her work. That's fine. However, she has to abide with the agreement that she did with her husband. $1,000 every month has to be deducted from her, from her salary to share or to contribute toward the covering the expenses of their houses. She has to abide with that. Okay, and the last point. Okay, the last point is that what if there is no divorce but there is a marital dispute, and she raised the point that I deserve money more than what my husband gives me. I work with him 5 hours per day, and this is not what usually wives do with their husband. In this particular case, we need to keep this point on hold and ask some expert people. If what she claims is right and she contributes more than what other wives usually do with their husband, then what she said is right, what she claims is correct and sound, and she deserves to take from her husband what is equivalent to the effort or the skills or the time that she spent with her husband actually to upgrade his business or just to run the business. However, the estimation of what she deserves has to be done by a professional and expert people. But basically, she does have the right to take money, as a return for what she, did or what she still does with her husband. Ruling of the non-registered marriage or الزواج العرفي. It's from the title you can tell what kind of marriage we are talking about. It's a non-registered marriage. It's a permanent one, okay, and all the requirements and the prerequisites for the marriage contract are fulfilled, but the only thing actually is that it's not registered. People might resort to such a marriage for different reasons. They want to hide themselves. They do something against the culture. They might be criticized by other people. For many reasons, they just prefer to keep their marriage just offline and not secret, but not to be registered. What is the status of this marriage? Again, as long as all the requirements of marriage contract are fulfilled, then this marriage actually is a legal one, and Islamically it is acceptable. As long as there is a wali, someone to represent the lady or the girl, 2 Muslim witnesses, men, witnesses, there was a statement, offer and acceptance, then this is actually the minimum that we can go with. The marriage by itself is illegal and sound and countable. We cannot say that this is haram. We cannot say that this is zina, because this is the minimum requirements have been matched already. However, it is extremely disliked. Why? Nowadays, if the marriage contract is not registered in the legal system in the court, what will happen? If the 2 parties have a dispute or argumentation after a while, what if she gets pregnant? How about that? What if she gets pregnant and he just denied the pregnancy? How could she prove that this is a legitimate pregnancy and she gets pregnant out of legitimate marriage? What if the 2 witnesses were not there? What if they passed away? She cannot prove that she did not do something wrong. So because actually of the high possibility of accusing the wife of doing something wrong or losing some of her, financial, privileges or financial, rights and responsibilities upon the husband, then this marriage actually has to be registered in the legal system just to protect the reputation, okay, and the right, the social and the financial rights of the two parties, and in particular, the financial rights of the wife. Otherwise, I mean, if you want to abuse her after, in the future, she could not prove this marriage, and consequently, she's gonna lose everything. That's why we say that it is a valid one Islamically. However, it is extremely, extremely disliked. Our Muslim sisters and daughters should not accept going with this, with this kind of zawaj or marriage. They have to insist actually registering their marriage in the legal system just to protect and to preserve their rights. Wallahu alam. I'm gonna stop by this point, inshallah. We'll be having some question and answer, and the next point will be zawaju al-mut'ah. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.